Yeah, fair use. Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976 allowance is made for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is used, permitted by copyright. Fair use is for educational purposes. I am not making any money. Yeah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. All praises, all honor, all glory, Kahaloyim, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. I like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well, to the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and in sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, the elect, Shalom, to the Israelite foreigners, whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold, Shalom, to your sisters, your Akhwatim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This your brother Ram Yahweh with the lesson.
He did 8 rounds on 4 targets in 1.06. And then he did the 6 shots, a reload, and 6 shots in 2.99 seconds.
Stand by.
He did 8 rounds on 4 targets in 1.06. And then he did the 6 shots, a reload, and 6 shots in 2.99 seconds.
Stand by.
Yeah, Genesis 27, verse 38. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing? Right? So this is Esau, the progenitor of the Edomites, right? Which the Edomites are the self-proclaimed so-called white man today, you know. And there are chocolate-covered Edomites, right? Which goes back to the self-proclaimed so-called white man, and many other different races as well, because you know they spread their seed amongst men too, right? So it's not just the self-proclaimed so-called white man. You have the seed of the self-proclaimed so-called white man amongst other people, and they look like those other people, right? So those people as well, right? They may not receive the blessing as most white people do, or self-proclaimed white people do, right? Because they're thought of as, you know, Hispanic, Black, Asian, right? And these, you know, so on and so forth. But the primary, the bulk of the self-proclaimed so-called white man, they're walking in their blessing when it comes to ultimately just white supremacy is their blessing, right? Because they're not getting the bulk of it, because the elites are. The elites are not really sharing the blessing as far as the money, you know, because really a true blessing is not have it's to have slaves and to not have financial stress, right? So they don't have that part of it, or at least they did at one point in time, right? And that got taken from them, and it became a corporate blessing that was given to ultimately the elites, because the elites became the bankers And even they're part of being what the blessing, right? To be a blessing is to have slaves, right? It says, my father bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Right? He's crying. He said, hey, give me some slaves too. I want to have slaves. I want to rule the world. Right? And Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, behold, which means look, feast your eyes, look, pay attention. Right? And these are key things, key clues you have to look for. Thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. Wow, okay. All over the earth, right? You know, you got four quarters of the earth, or four parts of the earth, right? And of the dew of heaven, right? So you got, you know, the sky, right? And so Esau has these different islands all over the world. You know, he's conquered different parts of the world, Australia, Hawaii. At one point in time, he had Hong Kong, right? All of South Africa, Europe, all of the Americas, whether you're dealing with Canada, the North America, Mexico, Central America, South America. Esau, the self-proclaimed so-called white man, is basically ruling over all those things. That's you know, that's that earth, right? And then above, right? In order for you to be a pilot, you have to speak English in order to be a pilot, right? You know what I mean? And then I think you gotta know Russian, or I mean English, and then maybe even Russian too. But the Russians are Edomites, right? For the most part, right? Says but he said you're gonna get these things what by thy sword. So when they got these places, how did they get North America? How did they get South America? How did they get South Africa, Hong Kong, um, Australia, Hawaii? How did they get all these chief places on the earth, right? And by thy sword shall thy live, right? And they go into these forever wars, 20-year wars, 30 years war. They go into these wars that be lasting forever. And everything's about, war. And that's how they live. They live by war, right? Our economy's not doing good. Okay, let's go to war. Let's trade goods, trade things, create weapons, and then let's sell weapons for war. Right? What do they call them? War dogs? Warlords, war dogs, right? And it says, and shalt serve thy brother, right? Now is the time of the well, we really can go back to time of David, King David, Solomon, but then there's a time that later on they served us too during the Byzantine Empire, right? But then time of the Byzantine Empire, and it says, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have dominion and shall break the yoke from off thy neck, right? So in the time of the Byzantine Empire, when we ruled, they broke the bondage things and basically took over the strongholds and became the Frenchman instead of being, or the Spanish, right? Or and became Spanish instead of being, they became the Spanish, right, took over England or English or England and became the English, right? You know, trying to do it because it's the way that they do it. They put a spin on the word. Because we're so used to saying English now and Spanish now, but ish is a suffix basically pertaining to something, but not really being that. You know, it's 12ish. It's bluish. You know, it's kind of like that color. A grayish color. You know, and that's basically what they did. And they basically conquered, took over those strongholds. Now you know them as the Europeans, which Europe is basically Asia. And that's what even to this day they call it Eurasia, and they're making it be like it's another continent. So there's really only 6 continents, and these are part of what the deceptions that they have done. But it's part of what, and it says part of what their dominion. It says when thou shalt have dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke, which be the Israelites, his brother, which is Jacob, which became Israel, which time of the Byzantine Empire they were ruling, right? And this would be around the time you would say, because really it was about the 11th to 12th century that they started, conquering. But of course, by was it 1492, you know, Cristobal Colon sailed the ocean blue, right? So this is based going into that power structure, that time when they really had a true foothold to be able to push forth. What do you call the thing of the Renaissance, right? Right, the rebirth of Esau, and Esau hated Jacob, Yaquab. So Esau or Joshua hated Yaquab because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, La'ab in the Hebrew, meaning your mind. So this is something he's constantly thinking about, right? In the days of mourning for my father are at hand, then will I slay my brother Jacob. Which, when you go into the story, when he did run back into to Jacob, he actually hugged him. They hugged each other and went their separate ways, but it was only for prophecy's sake. So at the end, that Esau will be ruling and basically killing his brother, right? Because we're coming to the time where he is coming to his end. He's going to come down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time. And their words, and these words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah, right? Because Esau was her son too, but she heard what her elder son had said, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son, right, which is that's our father, and said unto him, behold, right, look, feast your eyes, look, pay attention, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, right, he really want to put his hands on you, doeth comfort himself, proposing to kill thee. And they do that on a daily basis, even to this very day, because it's within their DNA. It's within them, because what, it was from the womb, right? Yeah. So this is Genesis 27:38, and Esau said unto his father, "Hast thou but one blessing? My father, bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept, right? To bless, right? which is Barak.
Strong's H 1293. Beracha. Beracha.
Yeah, it's Barak. That's how you really say it. Is so Barak, bless, source of blessing, blessing, property, bless, praise of the Most High, Yahweh, Bashem Yahweh Shai, a gift, present, right? Treaty of peace, right? Liberty, yeah, but it actually means also means slaves, to have someone to have slaves. Basically, that's what he was saying. He wanted slaves. Yeah, see, Barak.
Strong's H 1288. Barach. Barach.
Barak. Barak. So Barak, to bless, to kneel, right? So when you're gonna have slaves, you're gonna make them kneel to you, right? To kneel, to bless, bless someone, bless oneself, right? To bless, to be blessed, to be adored, right? Yeah. To cause to what? Kneel, right? Which basically goes into, it should have just said slave, right? But it's basically, yeah, call someone to kneel. So when to make someone kneel means these other people are slaves to you. So when you go around, you have the blessing of the world. You have the power to enforce power over the world, to make people kneel, to make people, nations, to kneel to you, right? To bend to your will, you know. And you can even bless, right? Like this, it says salute or curse, and you have a way to where you could salute them. You could put your economic hitmen on them, right? And make their economy collapse, which is like a curse. You could send forth, some type of disease, pestilence, whatever in their thing, especially with they have with the heart machine. They have these different weather machines. They can make an earthquake. They can make all sorts of things happen, right? And they can salute you. They can, hey, you're part of this, you're helping me, blah blah blah. They can bless you, bless the other people, but ultimately it goes into blessing. Which Barak basically means what? Slaves, to kneel, to make people kneel to you, right? Yeah. So this is Genesis 25:21, and Isaac entreated of Yahweh, right, for his wife, because she was barren, which means she couldn't have any children. She was unable to get conceived, right? And Yahweh was intrigued of him. Rebecca, his wife, conceived. See, and now because of the prayer that he had given to the most high Father, Yahweh, right? Which, Isaac is, Yahweh Shai, which later he returns as Solomon, right? And then returns as Yahweh Shai. And then, he got a couple other times he comes in, Melchizedek, things like that, right? Most likely I'm speaking as a man. I believe he might have been Enoch, right? Who got lifted up, because it only makes sense. But, let me just continue. It says, and the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of Yahweh, right, through a prophet. The prophet's going to tell her what the Most High had spoke to him to tell her. And Yahweh said, which through the prophet, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. So the prophet is telling her, well, this is what the Most High said to me, right? There are two nations, right? You have the spirit of Cain in one of them, right? Because that's how they're going to be separated. Because there's reincarnation, regeneration. Whether you understand it's biblical or not, doesn't matter. That's the format of the scriptures, and that's the only way you could truly actually understand the Bible. So that's how you know that spirit of Cain, which wanted to slay his brother, which that's what Esau was saying when his mourning for his father, he wanted to slay his brother. That's what Cain did, right? So we know that that's the same spirit. So we know that spirit is technically from the womb, right? So that's not a new concept as far as that spirit and where it wants to battle against the righteous spirit, right? So you got two nations are in thy womb and shall be separated from thy bowels, and then you have the spirit of Abel, which the spirit of Abel is in Jacob, right? That same soul, that same spirit, right, was in Jacob, right? So you got Cain and Abel all over again, but in new bodies and new names and new roles, so to speak, within the scriptures. But the same turmoil, right? One was righteous, one was approved of the Lord, and the other one was not accepted by the Lord, right? And it says, separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger, shall go into slavery, right? But who was born first? Esau. Esau was born first. So he's automatically going to be a slave to his younger brother. What Jacob, Barak goes into what? Making them kneel. See? And eventually one day, that day is coming where Jacob is going to make Esau kneel. Right? And it says, and when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, right? But these two twins are two manner of different people, two different spirits, right? Right? You got the righteous spirit and you got the righteous spirit, two manner of people, right? Her days be fulfilled. Twins were in her womb, and the first came out red. There's a clue. All over like a hairy garment, right? And not as a hairy garment, like a hairy garment, because you go back into the garments were dyed, right? You had beavers, wool, or like the fur, and they would take it and they would dye it certain things, and they called his name Shashua, right? Which means wasted away, which means his skin was pale, but you could see the blood showing forth through his skin, especially when a baby's crying and that fresh, you can just see them all red all over, right? And we know that happens to so-called white babies, especially, right? You could just see them red all over, right? Yeah, so this is Exodus chapter 26, verse 14. And thou shalt make a covering for the tent of ram skin dyed red, and cover and a covering above of beaver skin, right? So you could dye the garment that it's talking about is a ram skin dyed red, right? Yeah, so and I just came right here in the Google, as you can see. I just put crying red babies in the Google, and as you can see, red. That looks like he's more like a so-called Mexican or whatever, right? Because you don't see the redness in them, right? See the little white baby, you can see how red they are. See, there's be a baby like Jacob, like but he's not red, right? Another like a Judite, she's not red, right? Red, right? Red hair, red face, crying, red, right? All over, like a hairy garment. See, they turn red. Redness to his face. Yeah. Now just put crying red baby. Red, right? All that redness. See it, Ashashua, meaning wasted away, but he's red all over. Pale skin, but red. See, pale skin, but red. You know. Yeah, and then we're gonna come back here to Genesis 25:26 to finish up. And after that came his brother out, and his hand held on Esau's heel. Right. So notice they didn't break down a description of his brother. You know, oh, he came out looking like, because he came out looking like everyone else or every other baby that came out, which is you've seen when it showed those, you know, those what they call, which are brown babies, which are Israelite babies. You've seen the brownness in their skin. You didn't see any red, right? Though they put them in there, I don't know, but you could see how brown they were, and even though they were crying, you know, and maybe some redness come, but it doesn't. You don't get red all over, right? You know, like a so-called self-proclaimed white baby, which is really a Shashua, basically means pale, right? Wasted away, right? Your melanin is wasted away. It's not there, which basically goes back to the spirit of Cain, because Cain got the mark of Cain. The mark of Cain is the lack of melanin, which came back in that same spirit. Ends up getting the mark of Cain as soon as he was born, right? He couldn't escape it, right? And and that's a big part of understanding this, showing you cannot escape your judgment, right? You can't escape it, you know. You're gonna come back in your tribe and within your people, right? Could an Israelite return and be a Levite one life and then come back a Judite in the next life or another? Yes, of course, because they're Israelites. But because you're always going to be an Israelite, it doesn't matter what tribe you're in. It matters that you're an Israelite, and you're always going to come back as an Edomite, because it doesn't matter what vessel or where you spread your seed, right? You're always an Edomite at the end of the day. You are who your father is, right? So you came back as an Edomite, unable to escape the mark of Cain, right? You came back with the lack of pigment or lack of melanin. Not that you don't have any. It's not enough to protect you from the sun. And it says, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, right? Going back into that nature of Cain, right? He was always, Cain was basically, he was a hunter, right? The first killer. That was a form of hunting, right? He knew he was mad. He knew he was angry with his brother. He knew what he was doing when he came, and was it Cain in itself, right? Kwayan, right? Meaning weapon, right? So it's like a nomen omen, right? He's always having that spirit. So he's a cunning hunter and a man of the field. And Jacob, right, which is Yaiquab, meaning supplanter. See, and that's ultimately what he did. He supplanted uh, to get the blessing, which it was already his, because we just read it, that the first that came out will be a servant or slave, right, to the one that's going to be blessed, which Jacob got the blessing. So you're gonna have to kneel to Jacob, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents, right? Just average, Jake chilling, right? Yeah. So this is First Peter chapter 5, verse 7. Cast all your cares upon him, which is talking about Yahweh, right? Through his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. So put all your cares on Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakha HaKodash, right? For he careth for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, right? Which adversary goes back to the word Satan. Satan meaning adversary, right? The devil, right? And devil meaning what? False accuser, right? Right? And if you're falsely accusing someone, it is deceiving, right? As a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour, right? So as these their ability to go around the world, right? As they go around the world, right, to conquer, right? They seek whom they may devour, you know. And as you see, they don't really attack strong countries or people that they know that they cannot attack. Like they're not attacking Russia right now or China because they know they have a strong military. They go after a lot of weak nations, weak, things that they think they figure like, well, you're primitive. You didn't have, because the only reason why they conquered Hong Kong at that time, when you go back, in that time when they conquered Hong Kong, they had a modern weapon, right? They had the gun. Now the gun it's very known, and now you have these different scientists, and China has their own scientists. China has their own laser weapons. China is basically who's creating these robots, right? China's so ahead that they figure that's going to be the way they lead the that Novus Ordo Seclorum, in that way, where they're pushing forth the social credit scores, social, you know, in that fashion, right? Where you got classes, you have A, B, C, and D, where you'll live in these different class groups, right? And that will basically be part of your social credit score, or how much you can move around, right? If you're A class, you can move around a lot more than a person that's in the B class, and so on and so forth, all the way down. And then when you're D, you're just outside of the entire grid, and you're no longer a citizen, so to speak. Besides being like a peasant, you'll have to be one of these people who take pictures of someone else doing something wrong in order for your survival, right? So this is Revelation chapter 12, verse 9. It says, and the great dragon, right, which goes into the Roman Empire. So they, eventually, once they finally get some power, well, really it was the time of the Greeks, but then the Greek Empire fell. They came back as the Roman Empire, and that was a very pinnacle part of Esau's power, which that's why he's one with the deadly wound that was healed and returned, and it returned back as the Roman Empire, right? But it's a deception behind it, because they're scattered around the entire world now, right? and NATO, EU, and America has given them that power to go forth throughout the whole world, right? And they have a thing called what the Treaty of Rome in Europe, which they know that they go. Obviously, they must know that they go back to those Roman people, because why would you name it that out of anything? You know, you didn't have the people of China saying, "Oh, this is the revival of Rome," or the Treaty of Rome, right? So we know that these people know who they are. They know that they're the Edomites, right? So that goes back to the Roman Empire, which the Roman Empire still exists. It's continuing on. The deadly wound is healed to this day. It's existing. That old serpent, right, which is going back into the garden, right, which is talking about the garden, right, serpent that deceived Eve, which that same spirit went back into to Cain, and then that same spirit is in Esau to this day, and it says called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, and was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him, right? And it says a great dragon was thrown down, the age old serpent, who is called the devil and Satan, who continually deceive and seduced the entire inhabitant world, right? Seduce them by their philosophies, their ways, their things. Everybody, for whatever reason, all the places want to be like the so-called white man. They're wearing suits and ties, drinking Coca-Colas. They want to have the McDonald's and this and that, the Levi jeans, the Michael Jordans, things, wear the Jordan shoes, things that come from America, and then not to mention what the Illuminati, overall, the Illuminati, right, seduces them, right? That secret society, things like that, because that's ultimately where a lot of power comes from secrecy. You could do things in the shadows, so that seduces them, right? Because all these countries are basically tied into being, the Freemasons, Illuminatis, or whatever other organization that stems off from that, right? Habited the world, he was thrown down into the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him, right? And that's the end of the world when he gets put into slavery. Right? So I just wanted to go into this thing just to show you what it says. Diablos, which is
Strong's G 1228.
the devil.
Diabolos.
Diablos, the devil.
Diabolos.
Diablos, right? Prone to slander, right? Accusing falsely. See? Basically, false accuser. It's basically what devil means, right? We're going to go try to do this quick. And then Satan, like I was saying, adversary, right?
Strong's G 4567. Satanas.
Satanas, right?
Satanas.
Which basically means adversary.
Thayer's lexicon. Satan. Satan.
Okay, yeah. And he finished it. Satan or Shaitan. Yeah, basically means adversary. So that's all I wanted to just go to that to prove that. Wow. Yeah, so this is Revelation chapter 12, verse 10. And this is the blue letter, where it's the inflicted root and transliteration little rated, Strong's English, right? The Greek in a liner. It says Revelation 12:10 KJV, and I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our Lord, of our power, Yahweh, the power of his Hamashiach, for the accuser of the brethren is cast down, right? Because he's about to go, well, his kingdom is over. He's about to go into slavery, right? He know that he had but a short time, but he know that his excellency is cast down, right? He's getting shameful spewing for his glory. So he's basically, he's finished, and you can see it, he's losing grip, which accused them before our power, which is the Most High Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakadash, day and night, through their, social media, internet, their what do you call it? Their how do you say it? Basically, they have their propaganda. That's what you call it, a propaganda machine, right? Because everything's about propaganda, right? And that's what they'll use, whether false or real, right? They'll spin it. They'll spin the story, spin the web, make it bigger than what it really is, or they'll just make a lie and it's not really even true, right? So everything's about propaganda, and also what is this? Let me put this, because what's the thing I want to look up, because we're going to this. Yeah, you can go to accuser, right?
Strong's G 2723. Categareo.
Categareo, which basically sounds like categorize. So basically, like I was speaking of before about the A, B, C, D different type of ways of society that they want to have. That's an easy way to categorize or categoreo, each citizen, which they've already been speaking of that. The less money you have, the less, because it's not just going to be money, but it is going to be money. It's going to be based off what you really have. It's about the haves and the have-nots, but it's also about your categoreo. Yeah, whether you land in the A, B, C, or D section of society, and it's going to limit your ability to move around, right? Which is basically totally going to infringe on freedom, right? Because that's the job of a fascist, right? Fascist system, when it's a hierarchy system, when it's only 1%, ruling the globe, that's how they're going to do it. It's a categorial, and it says to accuse, accuse or falsely accuse, right? Because you go into the word devil, right, or diablos. It means a false accuser, right? So, but you can accuse or accuse falsely before a judge, right? That's what they're going to do to make an judge and to make an accusation. Accusation, right? Accusation, right? Which is basically meaning what? To accuse you. Accusation. An accusation don't mean it has to be real, right? It could be false or of a extreme judicial accusation. Right. Right. Yeah, you're right. Right. To make it what is it? Federal. Now you're guilty of a federal crime. You know, now you're going to trial because of this. And not to mention just on that, like I was saying, the categorical, everything is like an accusation. Because at any time you could lose your points in your doing that novus ordo seclorum, doing the micro C hip, being them having that social credit score on however level they're going to do it. I don't know if it's going to be, and maybe it's going to be several levels. Carbon footprint, but then they got, how much you're smiling today, how much you're going to say you enjoy living like this. It's going to be on many different levels, right? And and then they got the way that you get accused, because if someone catches you doing something, they can win so-called kudos or points, so that way their credit score goes up or down, considering how you operate in this new system, right? And that's what they're accusation. An accusation is a statement or formal charge complaining that someone has committed a wrongdoing, right? Legal action or was it offense or offense, right? So it could be the offense to, you didn't meet your quota as far as, your carbon footprint. You didn't meet your quota as far as not saying that you agree with what's going on and smiling and making sure you're posting positive things about, I love this new system. You know what I'm saying? So you're pushing forth, lies or whatever, and it depends on how disgruntled you are about this system. Like I said, it's more about how much money you got, but it is going to have some type of level of like A, B, C, D, and D is like you're pretty much outside of everything. And they were showing, like they were showing how you can kind of get points towards your social credit score is to catch someone misbehaving, which will be an accusation that they're outside of their system, which is another way of having a sword, right? Basically passing unrighteous decrees, right? So he is basically like a lion, like it says, a lion, like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, right? And that's a way to devour you, put to oppress you on every level, right? So this is Psalms chapter 17, verse 12. like as a lion, right? Going back to that point, that is greedy of his prey, right? And that's how they're gonna do. They're gonna treat you like prey. A lot of times they tell you how lion they'll kind of play with their food. They'll play with their prey, and then they'll devour it. It's like a little game. You have to play these little different games, which they've been speaking of that. Like when you watch these movies, they're kind of showing you some of the things that they want to do. Because they still want to be entertained. They still want to have, that's part of their thing, the bread and circus. So that movie, The Running Man, with the games, certain things, so you can like the new one, they made it where the dude needed to do that to feed his family. He ended up joining. And then if you look at it, that new Running Man, they had a bunch of different other game shows for the poor people to try to make money. It wasn't for the rich. It was only for the poor to make money. So that way it's like another way of having bread and circus. But in these games, you actually literally die, which is going back into that Roman Greco type of mentality where their games, you actually die. When they actually put gladiators into the arena, they actually literally, you either lived or died. You thought on your feet, you were a great warrior or whatever, and you you live or died by that, right? And they show you in those movies like that. What was that other one? Dang, can't think of the other name of the other movie. But there's another one too, where the guy was it was like an internet thing, and the I think it was on Black Mirror. Yeah, right. And the guy was he was at work, and one of his employees was like just laughing at these different things that he was seeing, and these dudes were doing certain things to themselves on the internet live in order to make money. It start off something small, cut your hair off, wear a dress, but pretty soon it became vicious, where you had to cut off a finger, you had to do something, where you end up maiming yourself in order to make the more you did something extraordinary, right? And that was the same one where it basically had the micro C hip, because the lady her micro C hip in her head, right, the one that was in the forehead, it kept needing to get upgrades, and so he needed to do things so his wife can function normally, because she needed those upgrades, right? Showing you that every little thing is gonna cost. That's why they're trying to show you where they're gonna constrict the cars to where you can't fix your car on your own. You have to go to the dealership, and then really, who could really afford that? But the rich. And if you could afford a car, eventually, it's gonna, it's gonna drain you, because you have to take your car to the dealer in order to get it fixed. This is way they just, hey, like as a lion that is greedy of his prey, and as it were a young lion lurking in secret places, right? And this is really the elite, the elite. They're in the shadows of everything. They're in secret places, but they do the most heinous things, right? Because they the one have the power, because really, was it the FBI, the CIA, even those military units that no one knows about, those black op units that no one knows about, the one that comes in, basically they have a license to kill, because they work for the actual elite, It says, arise, O Yahweh, disappoint him, cast down. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Arise, O Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, disappoint him, cast him down. Right. See, and that's the point where he's about to be. He's about to be at the time that he gets cast down. Right. Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. Right. Because look, he know that he has to push this because it's the time that he's getting cast down because his grip is slipping. So there's only one thing to do is to push forth this Novos Ordo Seclorium, right? And they're good with the guns, right? As you can see, that guy could boom, 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 boom. So these race wars are going to be pretty interesting, right? To say the least, right? Because the modern day sword is the gun, not to mention the pen, because that's what they do. They put legislations, laws, right? They accuse you, what judicially accuse you, right? So the modern day gun is a sword is the gun, but also the laws, right? Yeah, it says therefore. This is Revelation chapter 12, verse 12. It says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe, which means judgment, right? Because that's what's ultimately going to come. Is judgment is coming for him, right? While he's using these different laws, different ways to attack you, right? But the main thing is what Esau is really good with that weaponry, the guns. You know what I mean? So these race wars are going to be pretty interesting, to say the least, right? And a lot of you jakes ain't shooting a gun 4 targets at split seconds and then reloading and then shooting it again, so his thing is to operate within his blessing. So and operating in his blessing, what is he doing? He's what? Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, right? The accuser, right? Devil meaning accuser or false accuser, is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time, right? Right? Because he's getting cast down. Matter of fact, did I do it? Oh yeah, we read it earlier. Yeah, he was cast, right? He was cast into the earth, right? Basically being cast down to the ground, right? Matter of fact, yeah. So this is Isaiah chapter 47, verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, right? Right, because he's what? Being cast down. O virgin daughter of Babylon, because what? This place, which is America, known as the daughter of Babylon, has not had any actual real afflictions to this place. It had, most of the things that they did to go to war were self-inflicted, so they can, like I said, so they can go into these forever wars, which that's what they like to do, to make money, to make money off of creating the weapons or creating a war, and they bet on both sides of the war, which mostly deal with the elite, right? And then of course they go in and extract whatever minerals or whatever that's in the land, of the people, and they unalive those who come against them, like what they did in Nigeria when Trump bombed those ones who believe in um, the Quran, right? They were the ones who were more against what they were doing, right? They were the more vocal against what they were doing, because there were a big deposit of golds that was found in Nigeria, and and notice it was only said the one time or maybe two times that they spoke of that great deposit, but they spoke of it since. And then, of course, they had this great big old massacre of them unaliving these people who believed in the Quran over there, and that's what they do, extract minerals, precious stones, and precious jewels and things of value out of the land, and take it and hoard it for themselves. If it's possible, especially if it's a weak, like I said, if it's a weak country, and their military's not that they're quick to do that, especially now, because their military is not what it used to be because they're falling. But they, at the same time, they still kind of got a grips of the earth, but it's starting to slip. And they see that they see that they got but a short time, that they're gonna get cast down, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, right? Dealing with their witchcraft, it's not manipulating the people anymore. So that's why they're just gonna come in with the sword, right? It's just gonna come in with the racehorse. That's why they're building up, this whole thing with the regular Edomites. That's why they're just unaliving Jakes here and there, and they're proud about it, which ultimately is gonna bring Yahweh Shai, right? For thus shall no more be called tender and delicate, right? Because what? The Lord's gonna let it get kinetic, race wars, earthquakes at diverse places, and then it says kingdom against kingdom. So what? World War III is going to be the doom of this place called Babylon the Great, the daughter of Babylon. 2 million missiles are going to hit this place, man. A lot of warheads that's going to have warheads inside of warheads is going to hit this place, man. Right? And make it to where it's no longer that top place on the planet. Yeah, to come back right here. So Revelation 12:12, and says, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. See, and that's why he's just gonna get carnal. And see, you see those Edomites, they've been on task of having these tournaments, and they sharpen that weapon, man. Right? The regular Edomite, the average Joe Schmo, that's the average Joe Schmo, but the elite, they sharpen that weapon. Yeah, so this is Ezekiel chapter 21, verse 11, and he hath given it to be furbished, right? So this is the blessing of Esau, and he gave it to Esau for it to be furbished, right? And matter of fact, yeah, let's yeah. So this is furbished definition. Furbished means to renew something to a good, clean, or attractive condition, right? Matter of fact, speaking of that, that's what the MOTB is. It's going to be attractive, well, especially when those who you can't eat, you can't buy, you can't sell unless you have that. That's alluring attraction in itself, especially when you went some time without You know what I mean? Or you've seen the people go without, and you go, oh, not me. I'm gonna get that, so I don't have to go through that. You know, you're gonna be in line to save yourself, right? So that's an attraction, right? Because it's gonna be what do you call it? Voluntarily at first, right? And then of course they're gonna have that sword that's gonna be sharpened, right? They're gonna just come down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time, right? Even when Biden said we're losing our patience, right? That's gonna come again. I'm gonna have to um, I'm gonna have to use that one of these days. That that video when Biden's saying we're losing, because who the hell is we? You're the president, right? But he didn't say I'm losing my patience. He said we're losing our patience. So he's talking about the elite and them demons that they pray to, losing their patience. It says it is synonymous with polished, renovated, or reconditioned, right? And that's basically what's happening. It's going to put Esau in that reconditioned mind of yesteryear. The time when they can operate, because that's basically what the dog whistle of Trump was saying. Make America great again. When were they great? They were great when they could just they can look at you as a so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American and tell you that you better cross the street, right? That you couldn't look them in the eyes, right? When they come to your neighborhood, harass you, and nothing happens. Hey, even they showed you that they ready for that. 4th of July, they had a big old march with them walking around with their faces covered, marching down the street, showing that, going back into that reconditioned, I guess reconditioned to being, the Ku Klux Klan or whatever they think that they are, right? But the whole thing is they're ready, right? It's going to be a lot of bloodshed, right? Because what they figure, hey, we got the sword, we got this down pack, right? So basically, yeah, they have a reconditioned mind of being that dominant supremacy nation. Which, I mean, even the Lord, what they understand is the Lord reconditioned Russia's mind too, right? Gog of Magog, right? The Lord said He was going to put hooks in their jaws and put them into that USSR mentality to be back into that Cold War mentality, which it's no longer really being a Cold War. It's about to become a hot war, right? It's about to get kinetic with them, because really this whole thing with Iran is just a proxy war between Russia and America. But that proxy is gonna be no more, right? It's gonna be out the way, and then it's gonna be straight on America, Russia, and then their allies, and then whoever will I don't know, whoever's going to help America, right? Which they're like was England and all these other places pretending like they wasn't going to help America, but they are going to help. But eventually, they're going to get disappointed, and they're going to shoot their missiles at America, right? Because they're going to lose horribly. But hey, the whole thing is what? They're going to have that reconditioned mind, right? Refurbished, right? That it may be handled. This sword is sharpened, right? That's Esau, their war machine, right? Their propaganda machine, their racism machine, right? To that they can use their what do you call it? Their paddy patrol, right? They could use the slave patrol to come after you, right? Because that's really ultimately why the badge has that shield, because it represents the Rothschilds, right? And they're really the police is the police of the rich, of the Rothschilds, of the rich, you know. So they can do whatever they want to do to anyone that's brown, or any citizen that they feel that's not a citizen. Now you're a domestic T word, right? And that sword, right? Palantir, right? AI, surveillance, it's all sharpened, right? Right? That it may is furbished, that it may be handled. And so this is the time that it's gonna be implemented, right? AI, all these different things. Palantir is gonna be, it's all sharpened. A sword is sharpened, and it is furbished, right? It's all renewed, all cleaned up, all ready to go, right? All these different things to push that Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? Right? To bring in the race wars, right? Problem, reaction, solution, to bring in martial law, right? It's all there to give it into the hand of the slayer, right? Or the executioner. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to bring back those methods of execution, firing squad, hangings, beheadings. These are the things that's happening right now. They already all have it, and this is why these Edomites are super juiced up on, yeah, we're gonna, but they're gonna get put in that thing too. But not to mention, the Most High got plans for you. That's what you're forgetting, right? How says, cry and howl, O son of man, so you Israelites, right? Because Jacob's trouble, ultimately this is talking about Jacob's trouble, but Jacob's trouble is everybody's trouble, right? Right? Because judgment is going to go out, because the Lord's about to take off the gloves, because the grace period is over. Grace period is over. You Edomites, that's what they're not understanding. The grace period is over. As soon as you get the implementing the micro C hip, as soon as you get to touching your hands on the Lord's elect, grace period is over, right? And now you're in trouble. But this is for you Israelites first. It says, cry and howl, son of man, right? You Israelites, for it shall be upon my people, you Israelites, you so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. It shall be upon the princes of Israel, terrors by reason of the sword, which Esau is the sword, right? That was his blessing, and that's why David said, keep me and save me from the wicked, which is thy sword, right? It says, where was I? By reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon thy thigh, right? Because hey, man, you about to get a a ass whooping, right? like you deserve, right? He said, let the multitude perish then that were born in vain, right? If you're not following Yahweh Bashim Awashai, a lot of you Israelites were born in vain, right? You're not serving Yahweh Bashim Awashai, so you got to get your punishment, because it is the trial, right? Jacob's trouble. And what if the sword contemned even the rod, right? Because they're going to come against Yahweh Shai. They're going to come against you. They're going to come against Yahweh Shai, right? And it shall be no more, saith Yahweh, right? Because once they come against the elect, once they come against Yahweh Shai, and there are going to be no more, right? That's the end of their kingdom. And so they could see it, they could feel it, they could sense it, So thou therefore, son of man, prophesy and smite thy hands together, and let the sword be doubled The third time. See, yeah. And if you think about it, this is the third time that the Edomites are going to rule, and the very last time you ruled as the Greeks, you ruled as Rome. Now you're the second leg of Rome, or the Rome with the deadly wound that healed and returned. This is your third time. It's going to be the very last time you're ever going to be able to do this, right? This is it. The third time, the sword of the slain. It is the sword of the great men that are slain, which entereth into their privy chambers. Right? It says, I have set the point of the sword against all their gates, that their hearts may be faint and their ruins be multiplied. Aha. It is made bright. It is wrapped up for the slaughter, right? Which ultimately even the ICBM missiles, right? Because one of the things of because it said made it bright, the glittering sword is the missiles, but it's going to be also this things, because Esau's going to come down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time, right? And that's just going into them just being able to, push forth the race wars, the basically jamming you in with the lack of provisions, right? And they're going to push forth that Novus Ordo Seclorum. So this is that time. They're sharpening it all up, right? Yeah. So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 15 verse 14. Woe, right, which is mean judgment to the world, right? Because Jacob's trouble is going to be everybody's trouble. The whole world is going to be in trouble, right? But it is to get those Israelites who were born in vain to get their judgment, right? But Esau, guess what? That doesn't there's no pardon for you, especially for you. You're the only nation that is not promised any mercy. That's why you're gonna come with no mercy, because you realize you're not gonna get mercy, but you're gonna get no mercy because you have not shown any mercy, right? But that is an equivalent to your mind. So woe to the world, so judgment even to you, Esau, and them that dwell therein. For the sword, right? You're coming in with the sword, but guess what? You're talking about America, right? Every American has at least 3 guns on them. So there's plenty of guns in America, and then you got the guns that's not even registered, right? So you guys are gonna have a hell of a fight. But hey, you can see those Edom. They're ready. They've been ready for quite some time, right? So the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, or near, right? Nigh, which means near. One people shall stand up and fight against another, right? And sword in their hand, right? So race wars, right? These things are going to happen, right? For there shall be sedition amongst men, right? It says invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, or the cause of their actions shall stand in their power, right? Right, because really why a lot of things haven't happened, because the elite's been trying to get people to get out there and do, but people are so MK Ultra, so mind controlled. People are so docile. Basically, these things what they're doing right now. Was it the Nolan? What's his name? The guy that just got unalive with the 3 Edomite friends, and everybody's Nolan, whatever. This thing that happened with old boy, and a lot of these other things that's happening right now. It's really, and it's really the Most High, but it's a way for them to try to jumpstart this thing. I mean, they showed you that in that was it the first Purge? You know, Jake was out there dancing and, you know, having a party, having a good time. They basically had to implement these. Basically, you could tell they were like white supremacists or whatever it was. You know, these motorcycle gang dudes, you know. And, you know, they went after the people. You know. And basically they jumpstart, and that's when Jake had to get, you know, you had to get busy. So that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be within your power, and things are gonna jump off, man. The Lord saying that you're like a lion, like an old lion crouching, but who shall rouse him up? Hey, the Most High is gonna eventually rouse Jake up, man, and it's gonna be a straight up war out there, right? You know, they're gonna be war against their neighbor, invading one another, right? And once that all happened, which that's what they're trying to do, and it said a man should desire to go into a city and shall not be able, which basically they're gonna come in with the solution, problem, reaction, solution. And now that they have the you know, all these things, now they can come in and bring in their so-called order, their new ordo seclorum, right? No, novus ordo seclorum. So with all that, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh. Salakia. Give all praises, all honor, and all glory. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh. Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachaha Kodash. I'd like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever. The hopeful elect, the elect. Hey, shalom to the elect. To the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom. To you sisters, you achwatim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. And the Baba Ball, Kwam Yasharallah.